The wind sliced through the darkness like a blade, carrying flakes of icy snow that drifted across the backyard of the Maddox house. Under the harsh glare of the pickup truck's headlights, Alara Whitmore knelt in the frozen dirt, her wrists tightly bound with rough nylon rope. 7 months pregnant, her breath broke in shallow, trembling clouds. She could barely feel her fingers. She could barely feel hope, but she could feel her baby kicking soft, desperate, like a cry from inside her body. "Cole, please," she whispered, her voice cracking. But Cole Maddox stood above her, swaying slightly from the stink of whiskey on his breath, jaw clenched in drunken fury. Snow clung to his hair, giving him the appearance of a ghost, one who had forgotten he was once human. A man who had once held her tenderly now looked at her with a hatred she couldn't comprehend. Behind him, the phone screen glowed with Savannah Hale's face. The mistress. The poison. The woman who had whispered just enough lies to turn Cole into a monster. "Cole, don't go soft," Savannah cooed through the speaker, her lips curled in a smug smile. "She lied to you. She played you. Make her pay." Cole's grip tightened around the rope. "You think I'm stupid, Alara? You think I don't know that baby might not even be mine?" Alara shook her head fiercely, tears freezing on her cheeks. "It is yours. You know it. Cole, please, you're scaring Micah." A small, panicked cry echoed from the house. Inside the fogged window, Micah, their 1-year-old son, pressed his tiny palms against the glass. His face was red from crying. His little body shook with each sob. Every time Cole shouted, Micah flinched. Every time Alara pleaded, he wailed louder. Alara's heart shattered at the sight. "Please, he needs me," Cole snapped. "Shut up." He slammed the door, the noise making Micah fall backward out of sight. Alara screamed, struggling against the ropes, her belly tightening painfully. A contraction, or maybe terror. At that moment, she didn't know the difference. The blinding lights illuminated every fear she'd buried for months, the bruises she'd hidden under sweaters, the nights she'd cried silently while Cole drank himself into madness. The whispers Savannah had planted like rot inside their marriage. And now, the cold. The terrible, merciless cold. A distant engine rumbled down the street. Cole stiffened. Alara looked up, hope flickering despite her terror. A delivery driver's van slowed near the house. The young man behind the wheel stared, stunned, as the headlights revealed Alara tied in the snow. His eyes widened. He fumbled for his phone. "No, no, don't you dare!" Cole barked, stumbling toward him. But the driver backed away, recording everything. His voice shook as he whispered, "Ma'am, hold on, I'm sending this to the number on the paper I found. Whitmore. General Donovan Whitmore." Alara's heart stopped. Her father. The man she hadn't spoken to in 8 years. The man she'd run away from. The man she thought would never forgive her. Snow roared around them as the driver's message went out. Far away, in a quiet military residence lit by a single lamp, a retired 4-star general picked up his phone. He opened the video. He froze. Then, with a calmness that terrified anyone who knew him, General Donovan Whitmore stood, grabbed his coat, and spoke just 2 words. "Lock it down." And at that moment, Cole Maddox had no idea his night of cruelty had just awakened hell itself. Before the snow, before the ropes, before the terror took root in her chest, Alara Whitmore was the kind of woman people trusted instantly. Kind eyes, steady hands. A soft voice that could calm patients in the emergency room, even when her own life felt like a growing storm. She used to believe that goodness alone could steady a world built on chaos. She used to believe love was enough. She used to believe Cole Maddox was her safe place. She had been wrong on all 3. Long before she found herself tied in the freezing night, Alara had been fighting a quiet war. Silent bruises beneath sweaters, apologies whispered into pillows. Excuses made to coworkers who noticed her trembling hands when she clocked in. "Oh, I'm just tired. Oh, I slipped on the porch. Oh, he didn't mean it." Nobody ever means it until they do. But even the strongest lies eventually collapse under their own weight. Alara had grown up the daughter of a war hero, General Donovan Whitmore, a man carved from discipline and ice. A man who believed softness was a liability and fear was a choice. He loved her, but he loved strength even more. When Alara turned 18 and refused to attend the military academy, he prepared her for since childhood. His disappointment cut deeper than any bruise she would later hide. "I'm not a soldier, Dad," she had said through tears. His reply was colder than battlefield steel. "Then you're nothing I can protect." Those words drove her into a world she wasn't ready for. A world where Cole found her. He had been charming back then, handsome, attentive, endlessly reassuring, a former Marine with a tragic past and a smile that convinced her he needed her. She fell in love with the man he pretended to be, not the wounded creature he truly was. When he held her, she felt seen. When he kissed her, she felt chosen. When he whispered, "You're my home," she believed him. People forget that manipulation doesn't always look like violence at first. Sometimes it looks like affection, protection, devotion. Until little by little, those gestures sharpen into something else. It started with jealousy, then suspicion, then isolation. By the time Alara realized she was trapped, she was pregnant with Micah and too financially tangled to walk away. Cole controlled the accounts. The car, the house, her schedule. The friends she once had stopped calling. Cole made sure of that. "You don't need them," he told her. "You have me." But she did need someone, she just didn't know who anymore. Then one day, during a rare quiet afternoon, she found a prenatal pamphlet tucked into her coat pocket. It wasn't hers. On the back, in tiny handwriting, someone had scribbled, "If you need help, ask for Rowan." She didn't know who Rowan was. She didn't know how the note got there, but she kept it. Buried it. Hid it like a lifeline she wasn't ready to use. And then Micah was born. He was warmth in human form, a tiny heartbeat that made every bruise worth surviving, a reason to endure the chaos for one more day. Even as Cole's temper worsened, even as Savannah slithered into their lives, even as Alara realized the man she once loved was slowly becoming the nightmare she feared most. She stayed for Micah. She endured for Micah. She breathed for Micah. And as the rope dug into her frozen wrists hours earlier, her son's cries slicing through the night, one truth echoed in her mind, stronger than fear. "I will survive this." For him, what she didn't know was that help was already on its way. And the man her father once forced her to meet, Captain Rowan Pierce, was about to step back into her story. There was a time when Cole Maddox could walk into a room and make people feel safe. His Marine uniform fit him like armor, his medals catching the light as if they were proof he had been forged in something noble. Back then, he was steady, controlled, a man who believed in duty, honor, and the quiet dignity of sacrifice. But somewhere between the sandstorms overseas and the shadows in his own mind, something inside him cracked, and what leaked out was darker than anyone could have predicted. When Alara first met him, she mistook his intensity for passion. The way he watched her every move felt flattering, protective. She didn't yet understand that Cole didn't love people, he claimed them. And once he claimed someone, he couldn't stand the thought of losing control over them. Not after what happened during his final deployment. Cole had never told Alara the full story. What she knew was only fragments, rumors, half-truths, things he muttered when drunk enough to forget she was listening. He had been part of a special operations unit. Something had gone wrong during a nighttime extraction. A teammate had disappeared. Cole insisted he had been left alone, abandoned, betrayed. Others insisted Cole was the reason the team fractured. Investigators filed reports. Cole was discharged. Quietly, efficiently, the kind of discharge meant to bury something. He came home a man haunted by things he refused to name. For a while, Alara softened the edges of his rage. Her calmness steadied him. Her touch grounded him. But Savannah Hale, hungry, manipulative, and always watching, saw just enough cracks to slip into. Savannah met Cole when she was working the bar at Knox Tavern, a place where lost men went to drown their pride. She listened. She flattered. She insinuated that Alara didn't appreciate him, that his discharge was unfair, that he deserved better. Cole starved for validation, soaked it in like gasoline. And Savannah? She was happy to be the match. When Cole lost another job, she whispered, "Alara's holding you back." When Alara became pregnant, Savannah murmured, "What if it's not even yours?" When Micah was born, she sneered, "She replaced you. That's why you feel empty." Cole didn't stand a chance against her poison, especially once she learned the truth he hid from everyone, even Alara. Cole wasn't just discharged. He was under quiet federal investigation. A piece of classified equipment had gone missing during his final mission. It was never found. The investigation suggested Cole had hidden it, sold it, or used it to threaten someone. Cole denied everything. But the evidence was strong enough that he knew one thing. If the government ever found that missing device, they'd find him next. And Savannah wanted it. That was her real goal. So she pushed, manipulated, sharpened Cole until he was nothing but rage wrapped in human skin. The worse he became, the more she smiled. By the time winter came, Savannah had total control. She knew which buttons to press. She knew how to trigger the voices Cole tried to bury. She knew exactly how to make him believe Alara was the enemy. And when she told him to teach her a lesson, something feral woke inside him. That night, while Alara knelt in the freezing dirt, while their baby screamed from behind a locked door, while headlights carved shadows across the icy yard, Cole believed he was defending himself from betrayal. He believed Savannah was the only person who understood him. He believed Alara was the threat. What he didn't know was that his past was coming for him, faster than the blizzard rolling through the trees. And the man leading that storm was General Donovan Whitmore, who already knew everything Cole tried so desperately to hide. Savannah Hale had the kind of beauty that made people underestimate the danger hiding beneath it. Sharp cheekbones, glossy dark hair, a smile practiced in the mirror until it could disarm even the most suspicious man. But beneath the shimmering surface lived something cruel, calculated, hungry. Savannah wasn't born vicious, she chose it, the way some people choose a career. Manipulation was her craft. Destruction was her art. Before she slithered into Cole Maddox's life, she had already burned through 3 men, 2 jobs, and 1 college psychology program that expelled her for ethical violations. She called it ambition. Others called it sociopathy. Either way, Savannah learned early that if she wanted power, she had to take it from someone softer than she was. Cole was perfect for that. When she met him at Knox Tavern, she immediately noticed the signs: an unstable man searching for something to anchor himself to. Someone who hated himself just enough to worship the first person who fed his ego. Someone desperate for validation. Savannah didn't see trauma, she saw opportunity. She started small: free drinks, casual touches on his arm, whispers like poisoned honey. You deserve more. She doesn't appreciate you. You're not the one who's broken, she is. Cole fell fast. But it wasn't love. It was dependency. A leash disguised as affection. Savannah wrapped it tighter. She learned everything about Alara: where she worked, when she worked, her pregnancy appointments, her strained relationship with her father. Savannah followed her once, sitting 2 tables behind her at a coffee shop, watching her laugh softly as she read a medical handbook. Savannah hated her instantly. Alara was everything. Savannah could never be gentle without being weak, loved without having to manipulate, respected without having to demand it. And when Savannah discovered Alara had once been accepted into an elite military academy, a spark of jealousy ignited into full-blown obsession. How dare someone like her throw away what people like me would kill for? Savannah muttered to herself. She needed Alara gone, not simply to have Cole, but because Alara's existence offended her. Then came the discovery that changed everything. One night, while Cole was passed out drunk, Savannah searched his old military duffel bag out of curiosity. She found classified documents, maps, a name redacted with heavy ink, and a single note that made her breath hitch. Missing asset. Suspect, C. Maddox. Active search discontinued pending further intel. Oh, this was better than she imagined. Cole wasn't just emotionally unstable, he was dangerous. And dangerous men were easy to control. Savannah leaned over him that night, brushing her fingers along his jaw as he slept. You're going to give me everything, Cole, she whispered. And you're not even smart enough to know it. From that moment on, she weaponized his trauma. She made him believe Alara was unfaithful. She doctored fake messages. She installed a tracker on Alara's phone. She engineered confrontations, pushing Cole to the breaking point while pretending to comfort him afterward. You're strong, she'd whisper. She's ruining you. You need to fight back. She didn't care if he exploded. She cared if he exploded on command. By the time winter arrived, Savannah controlled Cole completely. He called her 20 times a day. He told her everything. He believed everything she planted in his unraveling mind. So when Savannah finally said, "Teach her a lesson," Cole didn't hesitate. And as Alara knelt in the freezing snow hours later, Savannah watched through her phone screen with a smile stretching across her face, sharp, satisfied, monstrous. She thought she had won. What Savannah didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that her own rope was tightening too. Because General Donovan Whitmore had just received the video, and he recognized Savannah's voice. The signs had been there long before the snowstorm, long before the ropes bit into Ellara's wrists, long before Micah's cries became the soundtrack of a home collapsing under fear. But like so many women who love too hard, too gently, too faithfully, Ellara Whitmore convinced herself things would get better. That Cole just needed time. That his anger wasn't his fault, that she could hold their world together if she only tried harder. But walls don't fall all at once. They crumble a piece at a time. It started with tiny restrictions, the kind that sounded harmless when spoken softly. "You don't have to work so many shifts," Cole murmured. "I just worry about you." But then it became, "I don't like you talking to male coworkers." And soon after, "You don't need friends who don't respect me." His protectiveness turned into possession, and Ellara found herself slowly shrinking into the corners of her own life. Money disappeared next. Cole insisted on managing their finances. "You're pregnant," he said. "You shouldn't stress over bills." But then the grocery budget dried up, and Ellara discovered her medical copays were unpaid. And when she confronted him, Cole roared until Micah burst into terrified sobs. Ellara apologized, because that was what she had learned to do to keep peace. Then came the night she should have left. Micah had been teething, crying uncontrollably. Ellara, exhausted after a double shift, rocked him gently while Cole paced the living room like a caged wolf. "I can't take it," he growled. "He's a baby," Ellara whispered. Cole snapped, shoving a lamp off the table so hard it shattered. Micah screamed. Ellara hugged him desperately. Cole stormed out into the night. The next morning, Savannah called Elara's phone. Smirking, mocking. "Rough night? Cole told me all about how overwhelmed you are. Shame you can't handle a child." Ellara hung up, shaking, heart pounding. But the damage had been done. Savannah had her hooks in deep. From that point on, Cole consulted Savannah more than his own wife. Every argument ended with, "Savannah says you're manipulating me," or "Savannah thinks you're hiding something." The gaslighting became relentless. And then, the phone incident. Ellara tried to call the hospital to switch shifts. Cole grabbed her phone. "Who are you talking to?" "My supervisor." He didn't believe her. He snapped the device in half. Micah watched the entire thing, trembling. Elara's heart broke that night. Not for herself, but for her son, for the innocence he was losing one scream at a time. Still, she stayed, because she remembered the gentle Cole, the man who had kissed her forehead the day she told him she was pregnant, the man who painted the nursery light blue and built the crib with his bare hands, the man who once whispered, "I'm going to be better than my father." But the man she loved was buried under rage, and Savannah was the one holding the shovel. The breaking point came quietly. Ellara scheduled a prenatal checkup. A simple appointment. Cole insisted on driving her, claiming he wanted to protect his family. But halfway there, he confronted her with a poisonous suspicion Savannah planted. "Are you meeting someone?" "No." "Don't lie." "Cole, please." He turned the car around, locked her inside the house, took her keys. That night, Ellara realized something terrifying. She was no longer safe. And Micah wasn't either. She planned to leave after payday. She had a bag hidden in the laundry room. A plan. A sliver of hope. But she waited one day too long. Because Savannah decided the moment had come to push Cole past the point of no return. And the next snowfall would bring Ellara to her knees. Outside, in the cold, with ropes around her wrists. Snow had already begun dusting the ground when Savannah Hale decided it was time to end whatever fragile pieces of Elara's life were left. She didn't announce it. She didn't plan a dramatic reveal. She simply woke up that morning, looked in the mirror, and whispered to herself with a satisfied smirk, "Tonight." Because cruelty didn't need a reason, only timing. And Savannah believed she controlled the clock. By late afternoon, Cole was already simmering. Savannah had spent the whole day feeding his paranoia. She was texting someone. "I think she's hiding money from you. Cole, you have to act before she destroys you." It didn't matter that none of it was true. Cole believed anything that drowned out the voice in his head telling him he was the problem. Alara felt the storm building long before she heard the first shout. Micah sensed it too, clinging to her leg as she prepared a simple dinner of pasta and leftover chicken. His tiny fingers dug into her sweatpants as if he were trying to anchor himself to her. His whimpers were barely audible, but they tore through her chest. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, kissing the top of his head. "Mommy's here." But safety was already slipping through the cracks. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames. Cole stumbled in, reeking of bourbon and resentment. His eyes were bloodshot, wild, the kind of eyes that didn't see family, only threats. "Where were you today?" he demanded. "The hospital," Alara replied carefully. "I picked up an extra shift, Cole. Please, you knew this." "You're lying." Micah whimpered and buried his face against her leg. Alara touched his curls gently. "Please lower your voice," she whispered. Cole stepped forward, looming over her. "Who were you really with?" "Cole, stop," she pleaded, trying to keep her voice calm. "You're scaring Micah." "I don't care." The shout hit Micah like a physical blow. He screamed, trembling violently as he pressed himself into Alara, her arms instinctively wrapped around him, shielding his tiny body. "Cole, please," she cried. "He's just a baby." "Then he should learn to listen." Alara felt something fracture inside her, not fear, but a quiet, dawning certainty that tonight would not end like the others. This wasn't just anger. This wasn't stress. Something darker had lodged itself in Cole's soul, and Savannah had handed him the shovel to bury them all. Savannah's name flashed across Cole's phone. He answered instantly. "She's lying again," Savannah said, her voice dripping with victorious venom. "I can hear it." "Alara?" Cole snapped. "Say something." Alara's throat closed. She couldn't speak. Savannah chuckled through the speaker. "Oh, she's scared." "Good. You need to show her who's in control." "Savannah, stop," Alara whispered. "Please, please stop doing this." But Savannah only cooed. "Cole, do what we talked about." Those words flipped a switch inside him. Cole lunged. He tore Micah from Alara's arms, shoving the baby into his playpen. Micah screamed until his little face turned purple. Alara tried to reach him, but Cole grabbed her by the wrist hard and dragged her toward the back door. "Cole, no," she cried, stumbling as he yanked her into the bitter cold. "Cole, I'm pregnant, please." "That's what you deserve," he growled, pulling her through the snow. The wind howled. The cold bit deep. Micah screamed behind the glass, tiny palms smacking the window. Cole shoved her into the backyard. Savannah's voice purred. "Do it, Cole. She needs to learn." Alara's knees hit the frozen ground. The rope tightened around her wrists. And in that moment, with the snow swallowing her breath, with Micah's cries echoing through the night, with Savannah urging Cole toward madness, Alara finally understood. This wasn't survival anymore. This was war. The cold wrapped around Alara Whitmore like a second set of ropes, numbing her fingers, stiffening her joints, stealing the warmth from her body one breath at a time. The snow beneath her knees had melted just enough to freeze again, trapping her in a shallow indentation of ice. Every inhale burned her lungs. Every exhale came out ragged, desperate. Her swollen belly tightened painfully, a warning she couldn't ignore. But nothing tore at her more than the sound behind the glass. Micah was screaming. His tiny hands slapped the window in frantic bursts. Thud, 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 each strike weaker than the last. His red cheeks streaked with tears. His curls plastered to his forehead, his mouth open in silent agony between sobs. He didn't understand what was happening. He only understood one thing. His mother needed him, and he couldn't reach her. "Please," Alara gasped, her voice barely audible. "Cole, he's terrified. Let me hold him. Please." Cole Maddox stood near the porch, breathing heavily, pacing like a man whose mind had split into pieces too sharp to handle. Whiskey fumes drifted off him, mixing with the metallic scent of snow and engine oil. His jaw clenched and unclenched, a tic she had learned to fear. "She needs to stop lying," Cole muttered, staring at the ground, then up at the night sky, then at Alara, never settling long enough to see the damage he was causing. "She needs to learn." On the phone speaker, still glowing in his palm, Savannah's voice slithered into the air. "You're doing great, Cole," she crooned. "Don't let up. If you give her mercy, she'll take everything from you." Alara felt her stomach twist painfully. Another contraction, sharp, blinding. She clenched her teeth, suppressing a scream. "Cole," she whispered, panic rising. "The baby. Something's wrong." He didn't look at her. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he kicked the snow at his feet and snarled at the sky. "Why does everyone try to control me? Why does everyone think they can leave me?" Savannah's tone sharpened. "Because you're weak when you trust people. Don't trust her. Don't trust anyone but me." Micah's scream rose again, louder, hoarser, almost collapsing into a cough. He tugged at the window latch with all his tiny strength, as if he believed he could break through the barrier with love alone. "Micah," Alara choked, twisting her wrists against the rope. Skin tore. Warm blood seeped down her hand. "Baby, it's okay. Mommy's here. Mommy's right here." But Micah couldn't hear reassurance. He heard only the wind, the thud of his palms, and his own terror. "Cole," Alara begged, voice trembling violently. "He's going to hyperventilate, please. Bring him to me." Cole turned slowly, finally meeting her eyes. But there was no clarity in his gaze, only a storm. Fear, rage, confusion. "He'll be fine," he muttered. "He has to learn not to cry so much. He's 1 year old," Alara sobbed. Savannah scoffed through the phone. "She's manipulating you again. She's using the kid to make you weak." And something about those words broke the last barrier in Cole's mind. He marched to the window, slammed his fist beside Micah's head, and roared, "Stop crying." Micah collapsed backward onto the carpet, wailing harder than before. Alara screamed, a sound ripped from a place deeper than fear. A sound only a mother in true agony could make. Snow swallowed her cry, carrying it through the backyard like a dying echo. For a moment, everything blurred. The lights, the wind, the ringing in her ears. Then, faintly, beneath the blast of cold air, she heard something else. A rumble, a vibration through the ground, a low, distant thunder. Not the storm, not the wind. Engines, more than one. They were coming. And for the first time since she fell to her knees in the freezing dirt, Alara felt the smallest flicker of hope. Someone had heard Micah's cry. The engines grew louder, deep, rumbling, disciplined. Not the staggered sound of pickup trucks or the wandering echo of civilians. This was synchronized, heavy, purposeful. The kind of sound that didn't simply pass through a neighborhood. It claimed it. Cole froze mid-stride, his breath clouding the air in sharp bursts. "What the hell?" Alara lifted her head, pain radiating through her belly, her wrists numb and slick with blood beneath the tightening ropes. She didn't know what was coming, but she felt it, like the earth itself had decided to rise against the cruelty unfolding in this backyard. The headlights from the approaching vehicles sliced through the trees. Then another pair. Then another. 3, 4, 5. Engines roared as dark shapes emerged from the swirling snow, massive black SUVs, their reinforced frames glinting under the storm's moonlit haze. They formed a perfect line at the curb, idling with military precision. Cole stepped backward, confusion twisting into panic. No, this can't be for us. But deep down, he knew. The doors of the SUVs opened in synchronized motion, like the opening act of a nightmare he never prepared for. Men stepped out, broad-shouldered, silent, deliberate. Their jackets bore no flashy letters, no police patches. This wasn't local law enforcement. Their presence alone made the night hold its breath. Alara blinked against the glare, barely able to lift her voice. "Dad?" The name slipped out before she could think. A reflex burned into her bones. Because there was only one man who moved the world with footsteps like thunder. A figure emerged from the lead vehicle, tall, weathered, shoulders squared with the weight of decades of command. General Donovan Whitmore didn't shout. He didn't rush. He walked with terrifying calm, every step radiating authority that could shatter nations. And for the first time that night, Cole Maddox looked afraid. "General Whitmore?" he stammered. No, this isn't." Donovan didn't look at him. His eyes, gray, cold, merciless, locked directly on Alara. And in that single moment, the storm paused. The wind softened. Even the snowflakes seemed suspended midair, unwilling to interrupt what was happening. "Get her free," Donovan commanded, voice low and lethal. 2 operatives rushed past him, boots crunching in the frost. They knelt beside Alara, their gloved hands gentle as they cut the ropes. One draped a thermal blanket around her shoulders, while the other checked her pulse, muttering into a radio. "She's hypothermic, pulse unstable. possible preterm labor. Alara winced, curling protectively around her stomach. "Micah," she whispered. "Please, my baby, he's inside, he's so scared." Donovan turned sharply toward the house. "Get the boy." His men didn't wait for clarification. They moved in formation toward the door, splitting into tactical positions as if raiding a battlefield compound. Cole stumbled backward, hands raised. "Hey, stop, you can't break into my house like that. You can't just—" "You endangered a pregnant woman and a child," Donovan said without raising his voice. "You forfeited your rights 10 minutes ago." The words hit harder than any shout could. 2 agents broke the door open. Micah's sobs burst into the night, raw and desperate. "Mama, Mama," Alara cried out, trying to rise despite the numbness in her legs. Her entire body trembled with instinctive yearning. An operative emerged from the house carrying Micah, wrapped in a fleece blanket. The boy was shaking violently, his cheeks blotchy, his breath hiccuping between sobs. When he saw Alara, he reached out with both tiny arms. "Mama." Alara's heart nearly gave out. Donovan himself stepped forward, lifting Micah from the operative's arms and placing him gently into Alara's. The baby buried his face against her chest, clinging with every ounce of strength he had left. "You're safe," Donovan murmured to them both. "No one will touch either of you again." Behind him, the operatives closed in around Cole. And for the first time, Cole realized the truth. The storm hadn't come for Alara, it had come for him. Cole Maddox had always believed he understood fear. He'd seen it in war zones, in the eyes of men who realized they were seconds away from dying, in the broken sobs of civilians caught between bullets and sand. Fear had always given him power. It made others small, predictable, easy to control. But the fear he felt now standing in the blue wash of tactical headlights, surrounded by silent operatives, was different. This fear made him small. The backyard that had moments ago felt like his domain now felt like an execution ground. Snow churned beneath boots, radios crackled with clipped, disciplined voices. General Donovan Whitmore's presence radiated such command that even the wind seemed to step aside. Cole stumbled backward, holding his hands up. I didn't mean for things to go this far. She was lying to me. She pushed me." Donovan didn't even look at him. Instead, he wrapped an arm around Alara's shoulders as medics guided her toward the heated interior of an SUV. Micah clung to her, tiny fingers curled into the fabric of her blanket. Alara's teeth chattered uncontrollably. Whether from the cold or the trauma, Donovan couldn't tell. But he knew one thing. He had almost lost his daughter tonight, and that knowledge burned hotter than rage. "Sir?" An operative called. "Do you want us to detain him?" Donovan's voice was ice. "No, I want him secured." Cole flinched. "What's the difference?" But before anyone answered, he bolted. He dashed toward the side gate, slipping in the snow, lungs rasping with panic. He didn't think he reacted the same way he had during missions gone wrong. "Get out, run, survive." Behind him, someone shouted, "Maddox is fleeing." Cole sprinted harder, slipping on a patch of ice. He twisted, caught himself on the fence, and kept moving. The cold bit into his skin, tearing tears from his eyes. His breath came out in jagged bursts, each one more frantic than the last. He had to get to his truck. He had to leave state. He had to call Savannah. Savannah would know what to do. He yanked open the backyard gate and froze. Because 2 more black SUVs were parked in the driveway, engines idling like predators, waiting for permission to pounce. A red targeting laser flicked across his chest, then another. "Hands up, do not run," an agent commanded. Cole hesitated. Then he ran anyway. He didn't make it 3 steps. 3 operatives intercepted him with military precision, tackling him into a bank of snow so cold it stole the air from his lungs. His face pressed into the frost. His arms were pinned behind him. His legs kicked uselessly. "Let me go," he roared, voice breaking. "Savannah told me she'd fix this. She said." One agent muttered, "Savannah Hale? Interesting." Cole froze. He'd said too much. Back at the main SUV, Alara heard the commotion and turned her head weakly. Micah was still pressed against her, tiny body shuddering in aftershocks of fear. She stroked his back, her hands trembling. "Mama's okay," she whispered. "Mama's right here." Donovan stepped beside her, gaze fixed on Cole's flailing form. "He won't touch either of you again," he said quietly. "This ends tonight." A medic checked Alara's vitals. She needs warmth and monitoring immediately. Blood pressure is unstable. She may be contracting. Donovan exhaled, slowly controlled, but furious beneath the surface. Move now. We leave in 60 seconds. Cole, pinned to the snow, screamed after them. You can't take her. She's my wife. She's my family. Donovan finally turned his head, eyes cold steel. No, he said. She stopped being your family the moment you tied her in the cold. Cole lunged again, but the agents pressed him harder. The SUV's door closed. The engines revved, and as the convoy began to pull away, Alara saw Cole one last time through the tinted window. Thrashing, screaming, shrinking. A man who finally understood the fear he had forced onto others. The interior of the lead SUV hummed with low, steady heat, a stark contrast to the brutal cold outside. Alara Whitmore sat wrapped in a thick thermal blanket, her teeth chattering, her skin pale beneath the faint emergency lights that illuminated the cabin. Micah was cradled against her chest, his tiny fists clinging to her collar as if afraid she might disappear again. His sobs had finally softened into exhausted hiccups, but the tremors running through his small body told the truth. The fear hadn't left him. A medic knelt beside them, pressing a warm compress to Alara's arms. She's bordering on stage 2 hypothermia, he said quietly. Keep her awake, keep the heater high. Alara tried to nod, but the movement sent a wave of dizziness through her. Her lips parted shakily. My baby, he was so scared, I thought. You're safe now, the medic said, both of you. But safety felt too fragile to believe in. Not after what she'd endured. Not after the way Cole's eyes had changed. Not after hearing Savannah's voice urging him toward cruelty as if it were a game. The SUV door opened. Cold air swept in before fading behind the figure who stepped inside. General Donovan Whitmore. He didn't sit immediately. He stood there for a long moment, taking in the sight of his daughter and grandson, broken, shivering, terrified. His jaw tightened, but his voice, when it came, was calm in the way a storm is calm before tearing through a city. Alara. She looked up, eyes glassy, breath sharp. Dad? It wasn't a whisper of fear or apology. It was a plea, a release, a cracking open of 8 years of distance. He lowered himself into the seat opposite her, the leather creaking under his weight. He reached out a gloved hand, hesitated, then rested it gently atop Micah's back. He looks like you, Donovan murmured, voice roughened by emotion he rarely allowed himself to show. Alara let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. He's strong. He tried so hard to get to me. Donovan's eyes hardened. He shouldn't have had to. Outside, operatives loaded equipment, monitored Cole's detainment, formed a protective perimeter around the convoy. Their movements were precise, silent, efficient soldiers trained not for war tonight, but for saving a life that should never have needed saving. The driver leaned back. Sir, we're ready. Donovan gave a curt nod. Move. The SUV surged forward, tires crunching over fresh snow. Through the tinted window, the backyard grew smaller, Cole pinned face down in the white frost, operatives towering over him, red and blue strobes reflecting across a man who had finally lost control of everything he tried to dominate. Alara stared at him, her expression unreadable. Do you want to look away? Donovan asked. No, she whispered. I want to remember, so I never go back. Micah stirred softly, letting out a whimper. Alara kissed his forehead, pressing him closer. The medic checked her again. We should head directly to the medical center, sir. She's contracting irregularly. Donovan's voice sharpened. Full escort, non-stop. As the convoy turned onto the main road, sirens wailed 3 police cruisers falling in behind them, lights cutting through the blizzard. Alara watched the lights blur through her tears. Dad, she said quietly. How did you know? Donovan's jaw worked. A young man sent me a video. He said he didn't know who else to call. Alara swallowed hard. I never thought you'd come. Donovan looked at her truly, looked at her for the first time in years. Alara, he said, voice low and unshakable, I would burn the world to keep you safe. She broke then, not into fear, but into relief. And as the convoy sped through the storm, a single truth settled over them. This was no longer a rescue. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The medical wing of Fort Alden carried a strange kind of quiet, sterile humming, suspended between fear and safety. As the convoy rolled past the secured gates, Alara Whitmore felt a warmth she couldn't yet trust. Her body still trembled from the cold, from shock, from the ache of contractions that came in irregular waves. Micah clung to her, his little cheek pressed against her collarbone, still sniffling with the exhaustion of a child who had cried too long. Medics escorted her inside, guiding her to a private exam room. Soft lights replaced the harsh glare of headlights. Heated blankets replaced the icy sting of snow. But no amount of warmth could erase the memory of the ropes, the cold, or her son's screams. General Donovan Whitmore stood in the doorway, too large for the space, too tense to sit. He hadn't removed his coat. He hadn't taken a breath that wasn't tight with barely restrained fury. For years, he had fought wars across continents. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of his own daughter freezing on the ground. The medic finished checking her vitals. She's stabilizing. Contractions are stress-induced. If she rests, they should ease. Alara nodded weakly. Thank you. Micah adjusted himself in her lap, clutching her shirt. She kissed his temple, letting her tears fall where he wouldn't see them. When the medic left, Donovan stepped closer. Alara, he said softly, the name rough on his tongue, as if he hadn't spoken it aloud in years. I need to ask you something. She stiffened. Not because she feared him, but because she feared breaking. Donovan pulled a chair closer and sat, posture straight even now, as if his spine didn't understand anything but discipline. How long has this been happening? He asked. Alara stared at her hands, the raw rope burns, the swelling, the faint trembling she couldn't stop. She looked like a woman halfway between strength and collapse. Too long, she whispered. I should have known, Donovan muttered, voice cracking. I should have seen the signs. You weren't supposed to, Alara cut in gently. I didn't want you to. He lifted his gaze, confused. Why? She swallowed, feeling the weight of years pressing on her. Because I didn't want to be a disappointment again. The words hung heavy in the sterile air. Donovan froze, as if struck. Disappointment? He echoed. Alara's eyes filled. When I left the academy program, when you told me you couldn't protect someone who wouldn't follow orders, I thought you meant you couldn't protect me. Not really. Not if I wasn't who you wanted me to be. Donovan closed his eyes, the pain in his chest sharp and unexpected. Alara. That's not. I didn't want you to see what my life became, she continued. I didn't want you to know I married a man who hurt me. I didn't want you to know I stayed. I didn't want you to know I was weak. Her voice cracked on the last word. Micah whimpered softly. Alara stroked his back, grounding herself in the rhythm of his breathing. Donovan leaned forward, forcing her to meet his eyes. You were never weak, he said quietly. Weakness doesn't survive what you did. Weakness doesn't protect a child alone. Weakness doesn't crawl through fear day after day, and weakness doesn't call out without speaking when danger comes. Alara's breath shook. I didn't call, she whispered. Someone else sent the video. You didn't have to. Donovan's voice deepened. The moment I saw you, I knew. A father knows. Alara pressed a hand to her mouth as her tears finally broke free. Dad, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, he murmured, reaching out to place his hand over hers. Not for surviving. Not for loving your son. Not for being human. A long pause. A long inhale. Then Donovan added, voice like steel wrapped in grief. But I need you to tell me everything. Every bruise. Every threat. Every time he hurt you. Because what happens next depends on the truth. Alara lifted her head. Her voice steadied. And for the first time, she spoke the full truth of her marriage. While Alara was being stabilized inside the fortified medical wing, Savannah Hale was sprawled across a velvet couch in her apartment 2 towns over, sipping chilled white wine like the night belonged to her. She had no idea that Cole had been detained. No idea that General Donovan Whitmore had deployed a small tactical unit. No idea that the video of her voice, her commands, her cruelty was already archived in a federal evidence server. Savannah believed she was untouchable. She always had. The dim glow of her phone screen illuminated her smirk as she replayed the audio clip Cole had sent earlier, Alara's pleading voice, broken by fear. Pathetic, Savannah thought. Some women simply weren't built to survive in a world designed for predators. A knock sounded 3 taps, deliberate. Savannah smoothed her hair, assuming it was Cole. He always came crawling back after doing her bidding, hungry for validation. She swung the door open with a practiced smirk. But it wasn't Cole. Two men in black tactical jackets stood on her doorstep, snow coating their boots. Their shadows filled the hallway like a silent threat. One held up a badge, no words, no smile. Savannah blinked. "Oh, can I help you? Savannah Hale? Yes? You need to come with us." Her laugh was airy, dismissive. "I don't think so. You must be confused. Do you even know who my father?" "We're not here because of your father," the agent cut in. "We're here because of what you did tonight." Savannah's smile faltered. "I didn't do anything. If Cole said I did, he lies when he drinks." The second agent turned his tablet toward her. A video played. Her voice, her words, crystal clear. "Teach her a lesson, Cole. She needs to learn." Savannah's blood ran ice cold. How did you, who sent that?" she stammered. The first agent said, "A good Samaritan." And General Whitmore. That name hit Savannah like a physical blow. General Whitmore. Alara's father. A 4-star military powerhouse whose reputation could flatten entire careers. Savannah swallowed hard. The agent stepped inside. "You're under investigation for conspiracy to commit domestic violence, aggravated endangerment of a pregnant woman, and attempted manipulation of an active federal suspect." Savannah froze. "Federal? What?" Cole had always told her the missing equipment case was exaggerated, that the government wasn't really watching him anymore. But the agent's tone said otherwise. "You interfered in an ongoing government matter," he said, "and you incited violence that nearly cost 2 lives. Savannah's voice cracked. I didn't know. Cole didn't tell me everything." "It doesn't matter," he replied. "Your voice is on tape." For the first time that night, Savannah's carefully constructed confidence shattered. "Wait," she whispered, her voice trembling. Please, can't we talk about this? I didn't tie her up. I didn't touch the baby. Cole did this, not me." "You instructed him," the agent said, "and you watched." Her knees weakened. She steadied herself on the wall. "You can't do this," she choked out. "I'm not going to jail. I'm not." But the agent stepped aside, clearing the hallway. Behind them, 4 more operatives waited. A containment van idled on the curb, exhaust rising like a ghost in the freezing night. Savannah felt something she had never felt before. The realization that she was no longer the predator in the room. She tried one last desperate reach. "Cole will tell you I didn't mean it. He'll say anything. He knows I love him." The agent's expression didn't budge. "Cole Maddox is already in custody. And he has given a full statement." Savannah blinked. "What statement?" He said, "You orchestrated everything." Savannah's face drained of color. The hallway spun. Her glass of wine slipped from her trembling fingers, shattering across the floor. And for the first time in her life, Savannah Hale understood what it meant to be prey. Cole Maddox sat in the frigid holding room of Fort Alden's secondary detention wing, his wrists secured behind him, his breath steaming in uneven bursts. The walls weren't painted with intimidation. They didn't need to be. Their quiet, surgical coldness reminded Cole he was no longer the one in control. No more shouting, no more threats, no more Savannah whispering poison into his ear. Just silence. And the slow, dawning realization that every lie he told was caving in at once. 2 military investigators entered the room. Not police, not local detectives. These were men trained to interrogate soldiers who knew how to hide the truth. Men who had seen what people like Cole created in the dark. One of them set down a folder, thick with documents. The other clicked on a recording device. "Cole Maddox," the first investigator began. "You are being questioned under federal authority regarding the assault of a pregnant woman, the endangerment of a minor, and your involvement in a classified missing equipment case. Do you understand?" Cole swallowed, his throat dry. "I want to talk to Savannah." The second investigator raised an eyebrow. "Savannah Hale is in custody." Cole's eyes widened. "Custody? For what? She didn't do anything." The investigator opened the folder. Inside were printed transcripts, screenshots, and still frames from the video the delivery driver had taken. Audio logs, phone call recordings. Savannah's voice, Cole's actions. "Mr. Maddox," the investigator said, "we have everything." Cole's breathing quickened. "No, you don't know how she pushed me, how she manipulated me, how she lied to me about Alara. We know," the investigator said calmly, "but that does not absolve you of your decisions." Cole's hands shook against the cuffs. Savannah planned this. She said, Alara was cheating, that the baby wasn't mine. Did you believe her? Yes. Did Alara ever give you a reason not to trust her? No. The silence that followed was a scalpel. The second investigator leaned forward. Mr. Maddox, you tied your pregnant wife in sub-freezing temperatures. You left your 1-year-old son screaming behind a locked door. You refused medical care, and you acted under the encouragement of a woman who has been manipulating you for months. She said she loved me, Cole muttered, voice cracking. The investigator didn't blink. And did you love her? Cole's face twisted. Not with affection, but with humiliation. With the realization that he had been used. She promised she'd fix everything, he whispered. She said she'd protect me. The investigator clicked a remote. A video appeared on the wall monitor. Savannah in her apartment, moments before arrest. Laughing, drinking, talking about Alara as if the woman she condemned were disposable. Then the knock at her door. Then the panic. Then the moment she said, Cole lies when he drinks. I didn't tell him to do anything. Cole stared at the screen as his veins turned to ice. She said that? Yes. She told you I did everything? Yes. She blamed it all on Emmy? Both investigators remained silent. They didn't need to answer. Cole collapsed backward in his chair, breath shaking, face pale. She used me, he whispered. She used me. And she left me to burn. One investigator finally spoke. Your willingness to cooperate may influence sentencing. Cole blinked. What do you want from me? The truth. And for the first time, Cole gave it. He told them about Savannah's manipulation, about the lies she fed him, about the missing classified device she obsessed over, about how she pushed him closer and closer to violence. Every word cracked his voice. Every admission carved deeper into the ruin of the man he used to be. When he finished, he slumped forward, defeated. What happens now? He whispered. The investigator paused before answering. That depends on Alara. And the federal courts. Cole's stomach dropped. Because for the first time in his life, his fate belonged entirely to the woman he had tried to destroy. Savannah Hale had always believed she could talk her way out of anything. She'd manipulated professors, employers, lovers. She'd convinced Cole Maddox, a grown man, a former Marine, to doubt his own wife, his own child, even his own sanity. She thought she could bend reality itself if she smiled pretty enough and lied beautifully enough. But in the stark interrogation room of Fort Alden, beauty meant nothing. No velvet pillows. No dim lights. No flattering angles. Just fluorescent bulbs and 2 federal agents who looked like they had interrogated far more terrifying people than a scheming young woman with a talent for destruction. Savannah sat stiffly in the metal chair, wrists cuffed, her breath shallow. She wore no makeup now. No jewelry, just a gray detention jumpsuit that stripped her of everything she used to weaponize. Across from her sat Investigator Hartman, silent, flipping through a thick binder, each page a piece of evidence tied to her. But Savannah still clung to arrogance, like a drowning woman clings to debris. I didn't hurt anyone, she said quickly. Cole is unstable. I only tried to help him. If he twisted my words... The investigator finally looked up. We have your words on record. He pressed a button on the tablet. Savannah's voice filled the room. Teach her a lesson, Cole. She needs to learn. Savannah flinched. That's out of context. Another recording played. If she cries, it means she knows she's wrong. Keep going. Savannah's pulse spiked. That's not what I meant. He was venting. I was calming him down. Another one. Don't let her run. Don't let her win. You have to control her, Cole. Savannah swallowed hard. Her excuses collapsed like dying embers. You incited violence, Hartman said calmly, repeatedly, deliberately. I didn't tie her up, Savannah snapped, panic bleeding into her voice. You told him to, the agent replied. Savannah exhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the table. You don't understand. Cole was dangerous. I was scared of him too. I just said things to keep him calm. Hartman tapped the folder. If you were scared of Cole Maddox, why did you encourage him to isolate his wife? Why did you visit him privately? Why did you call him over 30 times the day of the assault? Savannah's lip trembled anger, not fear. I was controlling him, she hissed. You don't know what he's capable of. You think I wanted to be on his bad side? A small, humorless smile crossed Hartman's face. Miss Hale, you weren't afraid of him. You were using him. Savannah's chest tightened. You manipulated a mentally unstable man into acting as your weapon, he continued. And you did so while knowing he was tied to an unresolved federal investigation. Savannah blinked rapidly. I didn't know that part. You did, Hartman said, sliding a document toward her. This handwritten note was found in your apartment. You knew about the missing equipment. You knew Maddox was flagged, and you used that leverage to push him into a psychological spiral. Savannah's breath caught in her throat. I was trying to help him, she whispered one last time. Hartman shut the folder. You were trying to control him, and in doing so you nearly killed a pregnant woman and her child. The room fell silent. Then the door opened. General Donovan Whitmore stepped inside. Savannah froze, every ounce of confidence evaporating. She had seen powerful men before, manipulated them even, but nothing prepared her for the quiet wrath radiating from Donovan. His voice was calm, sharp, measured, deadly. Savannah Hale, he said, your actions endangered my daughter and grandson, and you will answer for every second of their suffering. Savannah's throat burned as her voice cracked. I didn't mean... You meant every word, Donovan replied, and now you face the consequences. Her breath trembled. Because in Donovan Whitmore's eyes, she saw no mercy. Only judgment. The quiet of the medical room had shifted. It was no longer the fragile silence of fear, but the charged stillness of a woman preparing to reclaim her life. Elara Whitmore sat propped against a stack of pillows, Micah asleep against her chest, his warm breath brushing her collarbone in tiny, rhythmic puffs. His eyelashes were still clumped from tears, his fingers still curled tight, as if holding her was the only way he could believe she was real. General Donovan Whitmore sat beside the bed, not as the legendary commander the world feared, but as a father, one wrestling with guilt and a kind of helpless anger he wasn't used to feeling. Elara, he said gently, you don't have to tell me everything tonight. No, she whispered, tonight is exactly when I need to tell it. Her voice shook, but it didn't waver. She wasn't the broken woman tied in the snow anymore. She was something else, sharp with clarity, trembling with strength. And Donovan knew the story she was about to tell would decide how far he would go to secure justice. She took a breath, steadying herself. It didn't start with violence, she said. It started with apologies. Her fingers brushed Micah's back. Cole apologized for everything, for the yelling, for punching walls, for smashing my phone. He always said he was just under stress. Or that Savannah filled his head with bad thoughts. But Dad, I stayed because I thought I could fix him. Donovan looked down, pained. You should never have been alone in that. I wasn't, she corrected softly. Not at first. A memory flickered in her eyes. There was someone at the hospital, Captain Rowan Pierce. He was kind. He always asked how I was doing, even on days I felt invisible. He noticed bruises I hid. He never pushed, but he saw me. Donovan frowned. The same Rowan Pierce I assigned to family medical security years ago? Elara blinked. Wait, you assigned him? Donovan nodded. After you left home, I asked Rowan to keep an eye from a distance. You refused my help, but I couldn't stop caring. Elara's breath hitched. All these years, she thought she had no protector. But she had one she didn't know existed. Still, she continued, Rowan slipped a note in my pocket once. If you need help, ask for Rowan. I didn't understand then. I didn't think I deserved help, not when I'd built my life on running away from you. Donovan reached out, placing a steady hand over hers. You deserved help the whole time. Tears filled her eyes, but she pressed on. The night before everything happened, Cole grabbed Micah, not roughly, not violently, but wrong. He shouted near him. Micah cried so hard he started choking. Her voice fractured, the memory slicing through her composure. I should have run that night. I should have grabbed Micah and left. You survived, Donovan murmured. That's what matters. Elara nodded, though sorrow flickered in her expression. Savannah was the cancer, she whispered. She poisoned Cole. She told him the baby wasn't his. She pretended to comfort him while making him worse. She enjoyed watching me fall apart. Her face hardened, an expression Donovan had never seen on her before. She wanted Cole to destroy me. Because she wanted everything I had that she couldn't earn. Donovan's jaw tightened. She will never hurt you again. Elara exhaled shakily. And the worst part, Dad? Her voice dropped. Cole believed her. He believed Savannah over his own wife, over the mother of his child. He let her steer him into darkness, and he followed. She looked up, meeting Donovan's steel-gray eyes. "I want justice," she said. "Not revenge, justice." Donovan nodded once, slow, deliberate, final. "You'll have it. I will personally see to it." Micah stirred softly in her arms, and Alara kissed his hair. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe the nightmare was ending. What she didn't know was that the next morning would bring a revelation that would shake everything she thought she knew about her past and her future. Morning light crept through the blinds of the medical wing, soft, golden, gentle. The kind of light that belonged to a world much kinder than the one Alara Whitmore had endured the night before. It touched her face like an apology from the universe, warming her cheeks as she held a sleeping Micah curled safely against her. For the first time in months, she didn't wake to shouting. No slammed doors. No accusations. No dread dragging her heart down before her feet touched the floor. Only breathing, only warmth, only silence. A nurse peeked in, offering a tender smile. "There's someone here to see you when you're ready." Alara's brows knit. "My father?" "Not this time," the nurse said. "Someone else." Before she could ask, the door opened and Captain Rowan Pierce stepped inside. Tall, steady, brown hair tousled from the cold, Rowan carried the same quiet presence that had once made her feel seen in a world that kept swallowing her whole. Back then, she didn't realize he was watching out for her because her father had asked. Back then, she thought he was simply kind. Now she knew better. But that didn't make the warmth in his eyes any less real. "Alara," Rowan said gently, "how are you feeling?" She swallowed. "Warm." "Which is new." He gave a soft chuckle, pulling a chair close. His uniform jacket rustled as he sat, but his movements were slow, careful not to disturb Micah, not to overwhelm her. "You scared us last night," he said. "All of us." Alara lowered her eyes. "I scared myself." A long silence stretched between them, a silence not of fear, but of understanding. Rowan had seen enough broken soldiers to recognize trauma when it lived in someone's bones. "Alara," he said finally, "I have something to tell you, something your father never explained fully." Her breath caught. "Is this about the note you slipped into my pocket?" His eyebrows rose. "You still have it?" "I kept it," she admitted, cheeks warming. "But I didn't understand why you cared. I thought, maybe you were just being kind." Rowan exhaled softly. "Your father didn't just want me to watch over you. He asked me to protect you in any way necessary, not because he doubted you, but because he feared losing you the way he lost your mother." Alara blinked. "My mother?" Rowan hesitated, then nodded. "Your mother wasn't just a military spouse. She worked in psychological operations. She understood manipulation at its deepest level. She saw what it was doing to your father, to their marriage. That's why she hid things. To keep you from being drawn into pain that wasn't yours." The words struck something deep inside her, an ache she didn't know she'd been carrying. "So when I left," Alara whispered, "he wasn't angry because I disappointed him. He was afraid." "Terrified," Rowan murmured. "He never stopped caring, not for a second." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. "All this time, I thought I was unworthy of love, that I didn't deserve protection, that the way Cole treated me was what I earned." Rowan's expression sharpened, pained. "Alara, nothing that happened to you was your fault." Micah stirred, stretching a tiny hand toward Rowan. Rowan hesitated, then carefully let the little fingers wrap around his. "Alara," he said softly, "I need to be honest with you. When I saw you last night, frozen, shaking, holding on with everything you had, it broke something in me. Not because I pity you, but because—" He paused, breath unsteady. "Because I care, more than I should, more than I've allowed myself to." Alara's heart fluttered a feeling she didn't recognize at first. Not fear, not shame. Something gentler. Hope. "Rowan," she breathed. "You don't have to say anything," he added quickly. "Not now, not while you're healing. I just needed you to know you're not alone. Not anymore." Alara brushed her thumb across Micah's hair, her son safe, warm, loved. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future. But neither of them knew that outside the medical wing, Donovan Whitmore was preparing to reveal a truth that would change everything Alara believed about her past, and the family she thought she had lost forever. The courtroom wasn't grand, no marble pillars, no high ceilings, but it carried a weight that made even seasoned officers straighten their spines. It was the internal tribunal chamber of Fort Alden, a place where military truths were stripped bare and consequences sharpened themselves into sentences. Today, the room felt carved from ice. Today, Elara Whitmore would confront the shadows that had nearly stolen her life. She entered quietly, Micah asleep in Rowan's arms just outside the door, guarded by a medic. General Donovan Whitmore walked beside her, steady and silent, radiating a controlled fury that made every soldier in the corridor step aside. Inside, Cole Maddox sat at the defense table, cuffed, slumped, hollow-eyed. He looked nothing like the man who used to tower over her with threats. His face was drawn tight with sleeplessness, his fingers trembling. Without Savannah feeding him fantasies, he seemed small, terrifyingly small. A man built on delusion, now drowning in reality. Savannah Hale was seated farther away, her wrists shackled, her hair a tangled mess. The cold arrogance she once wore like perfume had evaporated. She kept her eyes fixed on the table, jaw clenching over her own rage. Elara didn't look at either of them. She took her place at the witness stand, her hands steady, scarred but strong. Donovan sat directly behind her, a silent wall of protection. Rowan slipped into a seat along the back wall, close enough to intervene if needed, far enough to respect her space. The tribunal judge entered. "Miss Whitmore," she said, "please recount the events leading to your rescue." Elara inhaled. For a moment, the memories pulled at her like undertow, Micah screaming, the ropes cutting into her wrists, Cole's rage twisting in the cold air. She steadied herself, grounding her thoughts in her son's heartbeat, in the warmth of the blankets, in the knowledge that she was alive. Her voice did not shake. She told them about the manipulation, the isolation, the fear. She described Savannah's influence, every whispered lie, every taunt, every moment she pushed Cole further into darkness. Savannah's eyes twitched violently, but she said nothing. She described Cole's escalating violence, the first time he shoved her, the last time he grabbed her before the attack, the way he dragged her across the snow while their baby screamed. Cole flinched as though each word struck him. When she reached the moment he tied her in the freezing cold, her voice softened, but it didn't break. "I thought I was dying," she said, "and I thought Micah would grow up thinking I abandoned him." Rowan closed his eyes, jaw clenched. Donovan's fists tightened at his sides. The judge glanced at Cole. "Mr. Maddox, do you dispute her testimony?" Cole's voice cracked. Savannah told me," she said. "Elara was cheating," she said. "The baby wasn't mine," she said. Savannah leaned forward, furious. "Don't you put this on me. You did this, you." The judge slammed her gavel. "Enough." Cole's head fell into his hands. Savannah's face twisted with panic. The judge turned to Elara. "Is there anything you wish this court to know before we render judgment?" Elara nodded, inhaling slowly. "Yes," she said. "There were moments when I blamed myself for their actions, moments I thought I wasn't strong enough, or good enough, or deserving enough to be treated with dignity. But I understand now, abuse is not love, and manipulation is not loyalty. And my son deserves a future without fear." Her voice sharpened, steady as a blade. "And so do I." A murmur rippled through the room. Cole lifted his head, red-eyed. "Elara, please, I didn't mean—" She didn't look at him, not out of hatred, out of freedom. Savannah hissed under her breath. "You ruined everything." But the judge silenced her. Based on testimony, evidence, and recorded admissions, the judge concluded, "This tribunal will deliver its verdict tomorrow morning." The gavel struck. Elara exhaled, shoulders sagging not in defeat but in release. Donovan stood first, offering his hand. Rowan approached next, Micah in his arms, sleeping peacefully. And as Elara gathered her child into her embrace, she realized something powerful. The courtroom had not judged her. It had witnessed her rise. The next morning arrived with a heaviness that settled into every corner of Fort Alden. Soldiers moved with sharpened urgency, voices lowered, eyes carrying the weight of what was about to unfold. A verdict wasn't merely a legal decision here. It was a reckoning. Elara Whitmore walked beside her father toward the tribunal chamber. Micah held securely against her chest. His small fingers curled into her shirt, warm and trusting, as if he sensed this was the final step toward safety. Rowan Pierce followed a few steps behind, close enough for support, far enough to give her space. His presence was steady, grounding. Alara drew strength from it. Inside the chamber, murmurs died instantly as she entered. Cole Maddox sat hunched at his table, cuffs clinking softly with every tremor of his hands. He looked worse than the day before, eyes bloodshot, face pale, shoulders collapsed inward. Without Savannah, he had nothing left to hide behind. He looked like a man watching the ruins of his life pile around him. Savannah Hale sat stiffer, jaw locked, hatred simmering under her skin. Her beauty, once her most powerful weapon, had withered under the fluorescent lights. Today, she looked like a cornered animal, not a woman accustomed to winning. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Everyone sat. Court is now in session for sentencing. Alara did not look at Cole. She did not look at Savannah. She looked only at Micah, her future. The judge began with Cole. Mr. Maddox, this tribunal has carefully reviewed the evidence, testimony, recordings, and psychological evaluations. She paused, eyes fixed on him. Your actions demonstrate severe instability, aggravated violence, and conscious disregard for the lives of your wife and child. Cole swallowed hard, eyes shining with tears he tried to hide. You are hereby sentenced to... He closed his eyes. 30 years in federal confinement. With mandatory psychological treatment, you will have no contact with Alara Whitmore or Micah Whitmore for the entirety of your sentence. A strangled sound escaped Cole's throat. Alara, he whispered, please, I loved you. She didn't turn, didn't answer, didn't acknowledge him. Because love didn't tie a pregnant woman in the snow. Love didn't terrorize a child. The judge continued. Additionally, Mr. Maddox, you will remain under federal scrutiny for your involvement in the missing equipment case. Should further evidence arise, your sentence may extend. Cole slumped, trembling. Savannah stiffened. The judge addressed her next. Miss Hale, she said coldly, your crimes are of a different nature, but no less severe. Savannah's chin lifted, defiant even as her world cracked. You manipulated a mentally unstable man into escalating violence, intentionally endangered the life of a pregnant woman, and exploited sensitive military information to control Mr. Maddox's actions. Savannah's breath hitched, but she forced her face into composure. You are hereby sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, the judge declared, with no possibility of early release due to the malicious nature of your involvement. Wait, what? Savannah shouted, jerking against her cuffs. No, I didn't do anything. You can't do this. The judge's voice was unmoved, steel. You did this to yourself, Miss Hale. Savannah's scream tore through the chamber, feral and unrestrained. The guards dragged her away as she cursed Cole, Alara, Donovan, the system, everyone but herself. Cole watched her, horror dawning. She said she loved me, he whispered. No one answered, because even he now understood the truth. When they were escorted out, the room exhaled its first breath of the morning. The judge turned to Alara, her expression softening. Mrs. Whitmore, you showed extraordinary courage. This court acknowledges your strength and your survival. Alara nodded, tears gathering but not from pain. From release? Outside the chamber, Rowan approached her. It's over, he said softly. No, Alara whispered, holding Micah closer. It's just beginning. And for the first time, the beginning felt bright. 1 year later, spring sunlight washed gently over Alexandria, Virginia, softening the edges of a world that had once felt unbearably sharp. The Whitmore estate, once a symbol of distance and discipline, had transformed into a place of warmth, laughter, and second chances. And at the heart of that transformation was Alara Whitmore, a woman who had crawled from the darkest winter of her life into a season she never believed she'd live to see. Her mornings no longer began with fear. They began with Micah's giggles, echoing down the hallway as he toddled on chubby legs, clutching his stuffed bear like a treasured secret. He was bigger now, sturdier, with a sparkle in his eyes that had taken months of safety and love to restore. Every time Alara watched him run into the kitchen shouting, "Mama, up!" her heart grew stronger. And Alara herself, she had changed too. She wasn't the trembling woman wrapped in emergency blankets anymore. She had returned to nursing, now serving as a medical consultant for Fort Alden. Her once fractured confidence had been rebuilt, piece by piece, through therapy, through support, through the steady presence of the people who refused to let her fall again. Especially Rowan Pierce. He visited often at first, bringing meals, checking on her recovery, offering to watch Micah while she rested. Then he visited simply because he wanted to. Because he cared. Because he saw her not as the victim of a brutal night, but as the woman whose courage kept her alive through it. And Alara began to let him in. She found herself laughing again. Real, full laughter at his dry humor. His stories from medical missions, the way Micah insisted on calling him Ro-Ro. She found herself watching the door, hoping it would be him. She found herself remembering the note he once tucked into her pocket, long before either of them understood what destiny had planned. On a warm April afternoon, Donovan invited them for a small gathering, a simple celebration of Micah's second birthday. Nothing extravagant, just a backyard picnic, balloons tied to the fence posts, and a tiny blue cake for a boy who had once cried at every loud sound but now squealed with delight when the candles flickered. Alara watched Micah chase bubbles across the grass, her heart swelling at the sight of his freedom. Donovan stood nearby, hands behind his back, pretending not to cry as he watched his grandson's laughter fill the air. "He's thriving," Donovan murmured. Alara smiled. "We both are." Rowan approached with a small wrapped box. "For Micah," he said. "And, well, maybe a little for you too." Micah tore the paper eagerly, revealing a framed photograph. Rowan, Alara, and Micah at the park last month. The first picture, in which Alara looked genuinely happy. Her breath caught. "Rowan, this is beautiful." "There's more," he said softly. "But I'm not sure if the timing is right." "What timing?" she asked. Rowan exhaled, a rare moment of nervousness slipping through his calm exterior. "Alara, I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm not here to rush you. But I've spent the last year watching you rebuild your life with strength I can't even put into words. And somewhere along the way, I realized I don't just care about you. He hesitated. For a moment, the world leaned in. Micah reached up and placed Rowan's hand into Alara's. As if giving permission, Alara's chest tightened, but not with fear. With recognition. With a truth she had finally grown brave enough to accept. "Rowan," she whispered, "I care about you too." His breath eased, his eyes softening. And in the fading afternoon light, warm, golden, tender, Alara felt something she hadn't felt in years. The future. One she could finally imagine without flinching. One she could finally want. One that might soon include more than healing, but hope, love, and a new beginning. A year and a half after the night that nearly destroyed her, Alara Whitmore stood at the crest of a small hill overlooking a quiet Virginia meadow. The wind carried the scent of spring, clean, warm, full of life. It was the kind of day she once believed would never exist for her, a day untouched by fear, a day she could breathe without memories clawing at her chest. Micah, now sturdy and energetic, chased butterflies along the fence line, laughing with the unburdened joy of a child who finally knew safety. His curls bounced in the sunlight, his tiny boots kicking up grass as he ran. Every giggle was a reminder. Survival had been worth it. Behind her, footsteps approached. Steady. Familiar. Certain. Rowan Pierce joined her at the hilltop, carrying a blanket over one arm and a picnic basket in the other. His smile was soft, shaped by affection rather than pity. He treated her not as someone broken, but as someone reborn. "Micah's going to wear himself out before lunch," Rowan said. Alara laughed, a real, unguarded laugh that felt like sunlight pouring from her ribs. "It's the first time he's seen this many flowers in bloom. He thinks the world is magic." Rowan glanced at her. "It is. You're proof of that." Her cheeks warmed. She still wasn't used to being spoken to with such gentleness, not after years of bracing for anger. They spread the blanket beneath the shade of a wide oak tree. Micah toddled over, breathless from excitement, crawling straight into Rowan's lap as if it were his natural place in the world. And maybe it was. They ate slowly, fresh fruit, sandwiches, cold lemonade, simple things that tasted better because they were shared without fear. As they finished, Rowan cleared his throat, nerves flickering in his eyes. "Alara," he began, "there's something I want to talk to you about." She tensed slightly, an old instinct, but Rowan reached out, brushing his thumb gently over the back of her hand. "No fear," he whispered, "just honesty." She nodded, grounding herself in the warmth of his touch. "I know your past wasn't easy," he continued. "I know trust is something you've had to rebuild in painful pieces. But over these last 18 months, I've watched you heal. I've watched you fight. I've watched you raise a son with more tenderness and courage than I knew a human heart could hold. Ilara's throat tightened. And somewhere along the way, Rowan said softly, I stopped imagining my future without you in it. Micah plopped into the space between them, babbling happily as he tried to pick a dandelion. The moment was so simple, so delicate, it felt sacred. Rowan took a small velvet box from his pocket. Ilara's breath caught not in fear, but in disbelief. I'm not asking for your past, Rowan said. I'm asking for your present and your future. I'm asking to build something with you, something safe, something real, something you never have to hide from. He opened the box. Inside wasn't a diamond. It was a ring Ilara recognized instantly, delicate, gold, etched with tiny initials. Her mother's ring. Ilara gasped. Rowan, where did you? Your father, Rowan said gently. He said she would want you to have it, and he said you'd know when to wear it. Tears filled Ilara's eyes, but they didn't fall from pain this time. Rowan knelt, steady as ever. Ilara Whitmore, will you marry me? Micah clapped his hands, shouting, Yes, Mama, yes! Ilara laughed through tears, her heart swelling so wide it felt like it might burst. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, Yes, Rowan, yes. Rowan slid the ring onto her finger as sunlight streamed through the branches above them, warm and golden, like a blessing. Ilara looked at the man she had grown to love, at the son who had survived with her, at the horizon that no longer frightened her. Justice had been served. Peace had taken root. And at last, Ilara Whitmore stepped fully into the life she had always deserved. So, that's the end of our story. And if you're still here, still watching, still breathing in the last moments with us, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a quiet, honest way. Maybe you saw a piece of yourself in Ilara's fear, or her strength, or the way she rebuilt her life one trembling breath at a time. You know, the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way." And that's exactly what Ilara lived. The pain didn't break her, it shaped her. It led her to a new beginning she never thought she deserved. Epictetus also said, "You are stronger than the things that hurt you." And maybe you needed to hear that today. Because healing is not loud, it's not perfect. It's choosing, every morning, to keep walking toward a future that feels brighter than your past. If this story stayed with you, if even one line made you pause and breathe differently, then let's grow this community together. Give the video a like, share it with someone who needs strength today, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak to the heart. We're here with you always.